Hi, this is David Hooten, the author of If Your Teen Could Talk. Dialogs with David. I'm talking today with Hayne Steen, who is the creative director for the Youth Network, and he has about 18 years working with youth all the way up to and into college. And today what we're going to talk about is how can you, as a parent, help your teen prepare for a really positive emotional experience when they leave the home and go off to college. It's a very complex emotional time for them, and that's what Hayne is going to do, is come in and talk to us about the 3 top tips he has for getting your teen ready. How about it, Hayne?
Well, I'm excited to be here, David. Thanks so much for having me on.
So you talked about 3 things briefly beforehand, and let's start with the one where you're talking about helping teens get ready to be away from home and what you could do during all of the high school years.
Yeah, there is a lot a parent can do to prepare, and the time to start preparing is not once the child has been accepted into college. The time begins right now when your child is young, but it's never too late. And so what I would recommend is really building a relationship with your child, one that is intimate, where you build in fun, you spend time together as a family. In our family, we spend a lot of time doing family adventures, and so our kids know that we designate time to go and be together on purpose. And so we know that in those moments when our kids are feeling offended or wounded or excited, that they will come to us. And so the hope is that as we build a relationship with them, it's not just about the business of being a family and keeping the chores done, but really it's about that the very core of who we are is a relationship with one another.
Right, and so that you have that, you call it a rhythm, this rhythm
Yes.
of communications, and if you build that up, especially during the last year or so of high school, so that you have that rhythm in place about how you're going to communicate when they are off at college and away from home.
Yes. And so, I believe the rhythm can begin as early as the child can communicate, but it can begin anytime. And so you're just building a pattern. It's easier, obviously, to build that pattern, that rhythm of communication sooner. But it is never too late to really work on what will be the rhythm of the way we communicate together. So if you're combative and you're authoritative with your child now, chances are they're not going to be coming to you.
Yeah, and that's a big fail in college. I mean, because when they go off to college, they really don't have anybody else to talk to, which kind of leads to that second point that you brought up. And that is, once you establish this rhythm, and, as I've preached on a lot of other, in my book and elsewhere on the Facebook page, as you build up this rhythm, the rhythm really is you listening as a parent.
Yes.
And becoming a great listener. And if you need to, if your child is off at college, you may want to listen during a phone call and then come back the next day, call back, check in. That's the time to offer the advice, not necessarily the first time, but the second call. And I talk about that as kind of a staging to get your brain around all the alternatives and try to get yourself in the position of your youth who's off at college. So that's a great one, but that does bring us right to the second thing, and that was, once they are off at college, they're away from home. And if they've never been away from home before, this is likely to be a scary, bad experience for them. So the things you could do, you mentioned things like a camp, I think. Why don't you take us a little further on that route?
Well, one of the things that a parent can do is to begin preparing their kid to leave in small ways now, so that so it might be going away for a week of summer camp. It might be going on a service project for a week in country, or maybe even a mission trip out of the country, where they're working together with peers. They're giving themselves away to something that's bigger than the individual, but they're kind of connected to something as a group, and really all of a sudden they catch a vision for what it's like to live in community with other people, where it isn't just about what someone's going to give them, but what they can give away. And so all of a sudden now, living in community, they're learning how to live apart from mom and dad. And I that tees up being a college student, moving into a room with maybe multiple roommates, learning how to deal with conflict resolution. But if, for a child, if they go away and conflict is a big deal because they're internally, there's a lot of conflict going on right when they leave. They're dealing with a lot of pressure right away. Even though college seems like a very laid back, sort of laissez-faire experience, what's going on inside that individual student is real chaos. And the way a parent can manage that is manage it in advance, prepare them to leave well. And so I believe that looks like allowing giving a kid some rope to go and be away.
Cool.
And to do that successfully. And in that process, they learn how to be in a small group. And maybe then when they leave and arrive at college, they really learn a skill about forming new friendships in a foreign place.
And I thought that was a brilliant, you talked about parents, one of the key things they can do before their youth go to college is not packing the bags, getting the toothbrush together, getting all that together. They need to be helping their kids find the right network or group of people, or small group activities that they become engaged in. And that's not an easy thing if you're trying to find it after you get on campus. So one of the biggest things, I loved what you said about that, one of the biggest things is that parents can help their youth find those small groups so that they perhaps can even get engaged before they get there. They can start making those relationships and friendships and have an emotionally positive experience because they know they have a network. In my book, I talk a lot about how youth have to basically start mirroring other youth. And that is their survival technique. I mean, it's that emotional brain that kicks in, and that's what drives a lot of their behaviors. And one of the things, that's so important for parents to remember is that a youth does not fully make all the connections in their brain between the emotional brain and the thinking brain and complete all the pruning that is necessary to have good forward thinking skills, good predictive skills until they're 25 years old. Well, by that time they're out of college. So just because they're going off to college, it doesn't mean they're an adult yet. It means they're going to need help still. We know from brain development that until they're 25, they aren't fully connected and fully wired, and there's a lot of wiring going on, and by finding the right small groups, then they can finish the wiring in their brains the way that parents hope they will.
Well, one of the things, David, that I'm even doing, I'm involved with a campus group called the House, and one of the things I'm doing there is I'm leading a process group for students who struggle with social awkwardness, and it's a very it's handled appropriately.
Now, what is social awkwardness?
Social awkwardness, it's sort of like the student that is sort of, he stands a little too close, or his mannerisms kind of just rub people the wrong way, and they're aware of how they're impacting the people around them. And so, but everyone else is very aware of them. And if they were aware, they would want to know how to work on this particular area, this skill of being in relationship.
Well, now, a lot of people are just going to call that Asperger's, but it's not Asperger's, is it?
It isn't just Asperger's, no. This is actually just a developmental delay in social, in their social makeup. And so for a kid who's, maybe a kid, for example, who grew up and he wasn't very social, maybe he spent most of his life online. There's a lot of great data right now about kids that are growing up online, and they're coming out of high school with a really low social IQ, and so they arrive and they basically don't have a skill because they've not spent a lot of time around people in groups. And so what this group does is it's like a life skills group, but it's focusing on how to be in a social setting.
That's cool.
So hopefully.
Hey, that's our time. It's up. Sure do appreciate you coming on. Let's do this again soon.
Oh, I love it, David.
All right, man.